Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am Anupa, a member of the Unlock protocol. I'm a service designer. So I design process and systems. So when I began to see different projects happen on Unlock, I was curious about what was the story, how was it made, what was the process. And that's why You Make Us Happen, a spotlight series for just the Unlock community members who would love to showcase their work. Today, our first guest is a designer, so that makes me very happy. Transitioning into Web3. So, over to you. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us more, and so we can start?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Thibaut, aka the Iconoclast. I transitioned in Web3 a couple of years ago, first as designer, and then now more like as a product builder, meaning like I basically um, now code basically what I design, so I can own the whole thing. Um, yeah, super interested in Web3 and the promises it holds for people in terms of decentralization, individual empowerment, and that's also maybe the reason why I stumbled upon Unlock is because I was in the public goods sphere, kind of following people around and just interacting here and there, and one day I discovered Unlock. And I first really liked the value proposition, what the protocol was doing, trying to get people out of the greedy hands of the stripes and consorts. So that was interesting, and I also really liked the care that was put into the user experience as as a user or as someone who wants to create, who wants to gate their content, who wants to create memberships. It felt pretty easy, especially for a Web3 protocol, which usually the user is just the last person we think about. I mean, it's changing, the narrative is changing, which is good, but still in 2026, it's pretty hard to
Yeah.
have that kind of positioning. And I think like Unlock definitely stood out in that respect, and that wanted me to get involved with the community a little bit more and to see how I could contribute as well and how I could like make the protocol even better.
Exactly, and I think that's a great start because when we start looking at various journeys, and especially bringing the user into the ecosystem and designing around, I think the value and scope of what you're creating is much more valuable. So, Thibaut, what is the kind of problems or area of opportunities are you addressing today through your project?
So I focused on the certifications. So Unlock allows you to create membership, but also to create certifications. So let's say you complete a course on Coursera or something like that. Unlock can create a certificate that shows up as an NFT on your wallet. Um, Something I found the concept really interesting, and it had a lot of legs, especially if you want to plug into platforms like edX or Coursera or these kind of things, big market as well. And I found it interesting, but also kind of lacking, like the last bit of the whole process, which is when, as a user, as someone who's been certified, I need to share my certification with a potential employer, university, someone who wants to know that specifically me, had this certification. So the NFT is good in some ways, but it was lacking that kind of layer of personal data that would automatically connect me with the certification. The the NFT connects me to a wallet, which is good, but it's not. I wanted to push things a little bit further, um, and that was the first, I would say, diagnosis, and then I thought, okay, so how can we make this applicable to the real life? And I had worked with the Ethereum attestation service on a previous project, and it was like, well, that would be a really good fit because the EAS, I'm not going to say the whole, the EAS is a really good protocol. They
Yeah,
they
yeah.
create basically um, attestations, as the word go as the name goes, and that attestation is basically a piece of data that's been encrypted and that you can trace back to its origin. Like let's simplify it this way. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like that's interesting. So if I put the EAS within unlock, we'll be able to add some layers of personal data, name, surname, date of birth, thesis, or anything that will add some more context and personal data to the NFT, to the certification. And these data can be encrypted. These data can be shared, and this data is very lightweight. Like the attestations are super light, like 20 kilobytes or something like that. So it's ridiculously light. So I really like that aspect as well. So and I proposed this improvements to the DAO, and it was approved, and I built it. So it's being reviewed right now. So PR is still pending. So we'll make a few adjustments, like it's regular process. But yeah, super happy to see this through, and hopefully it will generate a little bit more adoption for Unlock, because now we have the full certification
Whole
process
system.
nailed.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I think what you're saying is that today, data is so important. We've all, let's say, if I look at like a real life use case, the trust in attestation, and building this conscious personal layer of, truth is becoming more and more, and especially when it's not borderless,
Mm.
when you're shifting from countries, whether it has to be approved in various environments. So so do you think that what you're building is actually like a missing layer of data that can be added into web3? And how do you feel that unlock really, which you've already mentioned, but what are the features within the scope that really stood out for you to actually make this a kind of a like a data access layer?
Oh, that's a big one. There are definitely more use cases um, in that scope. You're crossing borders. You need to bring maybe your credit scoring, or just maybe your criminal record with you. Or I mean, it's not maybe it is. I mean, most countries you have to,
Yeah,
and you have to bring like so much paperwork. And you
yeah.
move countries, I move countries. We know how much a pain it can be to just to get that from your origin,
And
from your
not speaking
government.
about the cost,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
It can be prohibitive. So that
yeah,
could be interesting for Unlock as well, to just you know gate in some way some kind of content, some kind of private content,
yeah,
create some attestations that would say, hey, Anupa is doesn't have a criminal record, and that's it, without sharing too much information about yourself. And you could choose also what you want to share. That's basically what the ZK have ZK world has been trying to do,
yeah,
but in
yeah, yeah,
um, with varying degrees of success, I think, because the technology is still kind of it's brilliant, it's amazing, but it's not very understandable at the moment, not very like kind of accepted, um,
yeah,
especially by official governments. So I think there's an opportunity space for Unlock as well, to go there, to just like, hey, can we get some content being data you want to keep private, and just monitor the access. That's also
yeah,
something we can think of. I don't think that was the original purpose of Unlock, but the technology allows you to do that, especially if you have attestations plugged into it. That could be really interesting as well. Yeah.
yeah. And I
One thing I
think
would.
the whole,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say one thing which is interesting with attestations is you can choose basically what you attest. So in this integration with the certification process, I uh, arbitrarily chose like three schemas. So you can attest of your name and surname, you can attest of your name, surname, and date of birth, or you can attest your name, surname, date of birth, thesis, grades, and like the whole gamut. So I have like three schemas. It's just coming out of my own perception of the user needs, but it needs to be refined, it needs to be improved. But the lesson here is like you can basically create a schema whatever way you want. You can use a pre-existing schema as well, and you can attest to basically anything as long as the certifier is believed to be of trustworthy. So that's
Yeah,
that's
and
that that's
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I think that's very important today, because the right of attestation, belongs to, I feel it's very centralized, and it belongs to only certain, let's say, certain users or parties, right? In that sense, and the ownership
Mhm,
is never on the person who's actually doing it. So this is also kind of a movement where ownership comes in. And like you said, whether like with the whole zk roll-ups, the like, I think it was last year, the whole conversation of anonymity had come up a lot, right? So where do we stand with that? And especially
mm,
when you have, credentials coming up, how, what is the kind of choice that you build in, and especially, I think, which you can also talk about a little bit more, in terms of the way that unlock facilitates this mechanism without friction, where, it can also be an easy plug-in, because like you've talked about, and if you could share some more use cases, something like this can be at any level, whether it's
mm,
supply chains, which is
mm,
one of the, biggest, sources for, let's say, certifications, or even, let's say, transport documentations, which is
mm, mm.
travel based. So in that sense, how would it work, if you could like just explore that a bit more?
Ooh. um,
It
I'm not a
could
big,
be just conversation, we can just explore thoughts, it doesn't have to be,
yeah,
oh, this is how it would work, but like, let's talk about the potential of something which
yeah.
is so needed. I'd like to share one quick story, very personal story. It took me about 7 months to get my passport, because there was this requirement of, educational documents, and most of my documents are outside India, and to now get them attested with the amount of cost and just the effort was just not imaginable. I mean, if I had to do it, I would do it. So when I saw your project, I was like, if this existed, at that now, and it's so relevant in today's day
Mm.
and age.
I think it's very, yeah, attestations obviously, like that is, they're so powerful, and
Yeah,
um, but I think the power of unlock plus attestations plus the EAS is, I was thinking in abstract ways, like if you have, let's say, a subscription, whatever kind of subscription it is, it could be insurance, it could be anything, unlock was built for, I guess, content, in general. So like you have content, you want to gate it because you have to make a living out of your writing. Let's assume, so you can gate your content, people can pay and subscribe, and you can book subscriptions, kind of things. But you can explore, like you can think a bit broader, like what kind of subscriptions do we have in our lives, and you have, yeah, you have insurance, you have internet, these kind of things. And when you plug attestations to it, it's like, oh, we want to make sure Anupa, paid her insurance in the past years.
yeah,
So your insurer can just like plug into Unlock, just manage the whole system, and just create the attestation, to justify that you paid your fees on time and you didn't have any accident, these kind of things. That's very very B2B, more for people, normal people like you and I.
yeah,
Everything that needs to be gated, and everything that needs to be, and you need to show that you own it. That's where the use cases are, and they're multiple. It can be paperwork, it can be anything else. But I think what's interesting to explore as well is like when there's a recurring interaction between you and someone else. So if you have subscribers, yeah, there's a recurring interaction between you and them, and they're paying you and this kind of things. That also can be attested in some ways. Like, yeah, Anupa is a really good content creator, and she's got that many followers, and that many people pay, and she can prove it. And it can be also like some kind of proving that you have revenue as well. When you
yeah,
think about it, when you go a little bit further, because now we're getting into an economy where the traditional job market is shifting really really hard, and like you have like people
yeah,
in gig economy and this kind of thing. So sometimes it can be hard for those people to prove they have revenue, especially revenue over the past 1, 2, 3, 4 years. So that's also some kind of area you can explore as an individual. It's just like, okay, who am I interacting with on a normal basis, on a regular basis? Can I gate that? Can I just manage the gated content myself so that I'm not depending on a centralized party? And how do I attest that this is working, and what do I want to attest to? And that's the thinking I think we need to get into. It's very rich. It's kind of like it's a shift of perspective, but I think that's what Web3 is for. I mean, at the end of the day, that's it.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you're saying that it's something that we can just blend in, like maybe it works as a condition layer, because if it's repetition of a process, then it can be used in anything. Let's say compliance, when
Mhm.
you need to make reports,
Mhm.
where where actually technology is also aiding them to become more efficient and
Mhm.
much more I would say efficient, organized, and creating that level of trust also, with the idea of how trust works in Web3, and in also figuratively of how trust works. And I think these use cases are really actually also helps us to become much more independent.
Mhm.
So in the way that we're actually conducting, whether it's work, whether it's building operational value, I think this kind of conditional layer is definitely helpful. What would you like to just like maybe run us around the, like, just what you've built, talk about it, the UX, and how would it work, what is the impact of it, just things like that of what you've created.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to pop up the interface if I can find it. Uh, da-da-da-da-da. There you go. So I'm just going to show you the screens themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to for you to understand. So they're locksmith, display attestation. So can I share my screen?
There is a button down
Yes.
there, which you just share your screen.
Oh, sorry about that. So I'm sharing my Figma file basically.
Okay.
So
It Yeah, okay, we've got it. Yeah.
yeah, can you
Thanks.
see it?
Yeah.
All right. Um, let's go. Alors, look at the time I had a prototype, so hopefully this will work. Yeah. So I'm going to go the other way. So I'm going to go, let's say you have, you're a student and you've asked your university for a certificate of completion of your diploma. One use case I was thinking of is, I don't know about other universities, but in France, they only give you one original of your diploma. So
Yeah.
you lose,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or you have to
you
pay for it
lose.
if you get if it's lost.
Yeah. Well, even we, for my business school, like, you can't even pay for it. Like it's like, no, you lose it. Like it's done. Bye bye. So it's pretty annoying because I think I still have it, but I'm not even sure. I don't want to look too much into it. But my initial idea was like, okay, what happens if I need it because I need to justify that I graduated from this business school, and the idea was to like, I'm asking them, hey, can you certify that I graduated in that year, blah blah blah, and say, okay, cool, the certification is available on Unlock, and I would have a keychain on Unlock, which is like regular with like an NFT which certifies that I
Yeah.
completed my program with them. And here in the action, so I've just added a little bit of menu item on the action, which is download attestation, and obviously it's not the right screen. Apologies for that. There you go. Sorry, it's very wireframey. So the idea is that you click on the action, and you have all these like kind of options at the moment, and you have like a download attestation, where you can just basically download a certificate that tells you, and I'll show you the certificate maybe later. I have a copy somewhere. It's pretty nice. You have the NFT, basically the NFT, the transaction hash of the attestation, and the attestation itself, which is like a long hash code. And what I want to
Yeah.
do in a further in a further version is I want to plug a QR code on the attestation, on the certificate itself, so that the employer can just directly pull up his phone, scan the QR code of the attestation, and it will like send him directly to a page on the Unlock website where you can say, hey, Thibaut has graduated in that year and did done all of that. So all the certification can take like, maybe a couple of hours at maximum, between the time where as a former student, I ask for a certification, my university generates it, and super simple. I'll show you a few screens here.
Yeah.
And by the time I receive it, it's like almost instantaneous, and I can share it with my employer. So it can like be super fast. So here, for example, if you want to share it directly with someone, I could just like first name, last name, and just like share the recipients. Pretty easy. Go around the screens again a little
Yeah,
bit.
and this is great because the URL can be actually you can add it onto any of your profession, like you can add it onto your LinkedIn, and
Exactly.
a lot of
Yeah.
colleges now, let's say if you want your certification from, let's say, school or something like that, they said that okay, we're going to take a basic fee to actually hunt through the records if it's physically there. If not, then like, yeah, because a lot of people might have moved countries or lost it, and at least with it being on the blockchain, there is no way it's going to get lost, like it's your grade
Exactly.
that's going to
Yeah.
be very
Yeah.
mutable forever, right?
Yeah. I haven't thought of that, but that's a really good idea actually. If you can share that on LinkedIn in some kind of ways, that's also super
Yeah,
super easy.
I did it for one of the courses that I was in, and
Mm-hmm.
it was minted, like the certificate was minted, and the link can just be added on to LinkedIn. It's a very easy process. You can have a look at
Yeah.
it. So that's
Yeah.
also extremely easy.
Yeah. Um, what I'm going to show you now is the flow. Let me see if I can remove the comments, because that's kind of it's going to be annoying. There you go. That's better. So let's say now I'm the university, right? I'm one of the managers or whatever you want to call that. So
Yeah.
I'm just showing you the components, and I can talk about the integration later, the technical aspects, because I try to
Yeah,
stick to
that would be great. Yeah, yeah.
the design system as much as I wanted. So I just took all the components that were living on storybooks and just try not to create any new components. There's just use the UI elements that were already there. And honestly, I didn't have to create any new elements. So that was just a testament to the care that was put into the UI there. So yeah, great job to whoever was behind that. So basically, what you can see here is an NFT of someone who graduated. Let's say let's keep on with the same example. So that's
Yeah,
the owner, the wallet of the owner,
yeah,
never expires. And you can do a few things here on the NFT. You can extend it, you can revoke it, and blah blah blah. But I just added a menu item here, and it's called a create attestation. This will just pop up a drawer from the right hand side up. The drawer pops up, and here you basically fill out, as the certifier, you fill out the data you want to attest to. So as I was saying earlier, I chose three schemas, three data schemas. So basic is just first name, last name. You can have a little bit more elaborate first name, last name, and date of birth, and first name, last name, date of birth, grade, etc., etc. Again, like something, it's easy to change. It was just a first
yeah.
attempt. So that's what I'm showing. I'm showing here, like the options you have. So that's a drop-down menu basically. And yeah, I want to
And
have
the
an option
and the
to create new.
metadata can be customized, right? So whatever data there is, each college or certifier can customize the data according to their requirement.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
they could do that by creating
that's
new. It's
interesting.
not. I've not developed that already. Again,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, it's a bit more work, but it's totally doable. But yes, technically, you can create a new schema to certify whatever you want. Every college can do that. No problem. Yeah, I already have the screens there. ready to go. And
Yeah.
then once it's done, boom, the thing goes. There's a few UI elements that just say, hey, attestation be created, etc. And you have feedback, and here you go, your attestation has been sent, and that's it. So really, like it's a matter of like one click here just to create attestation, a few like just a super simple form, create and send, and attestation has been created and sent.
Yeah.
One thing I would add to that is that the attestation itself is stored on Unlock's servers. So it's a trade-off I made between storing it on chain or storing it on servers. So if I really wanted it to be like full decentralization, etc., I would put the attestation on chain. I was not super comfortable with it because it has private data.
Yeah.
I'd rather have it, on a database that is at least a little bit secure,
Yeah.
and that also allows like for the QR code flow to be a bit more easy technically to integrate.
Yeah.
So that's also the
Yeah.
reason why I did it. So once you go through this flow, attestations being created, stored in a database, and then being sent as a PDF certificate to the recipient. So that's the flow. Super easy, and you can do as many times as you want. It
Yeah.
doesn't consume too much resources to create the attestation. And it's super lightweight. It's also why I really like this EAS project, because the technology is really nice, super lightweight, easy to share, and hopefully I'll have time to just add the QR code on top of the certificate, and that's going to be like the full thing is going to be done.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is also quite easy for people who are, let's say, not from the Web3, let's say, community, to actually adopt, and also to, because one thing, which is, we've also spoken about this earlier, is that to build use cases that can be easily replicated and used, by millions, is something that we have to consciously keep in mind, that we're not building for a very selective group, you know and this is something that anybody can do, like, like we've been speaking about, and especially in the educational institutions, where how things work within the admin, right? So even to train and adopt that relevance of, like being relatability, understanding logic, pattern recognition, is definitely needed.
Mm-mm. Yeah, totally. I mean, we're talking user experience, like how easy to
Yeah.
understand what this thing can do for you, and how
Yeah.
once you understand that, how easy to go through the motions to actually do the thing you want it to do, right? So for attestations, like,
Yeah.
why should I care about creating attestations as a university? Well, you can just like really simplify all this kind of administrative workload that you probably have when you have to send, confirmation that this person
Mm.
was here in 2007 or whatever. So that can be really streamlined this. Um, and how the second question is like, how is it to use? And that's also the second part where us as designers will also have something to say, is like, let's use
Always.
clear, yeah, let's use clear I was
Yeah.
getting clear jargon, which is like an oxymoron, not like clear
Yeah.
terms and vocabulary, so that people understand it's not too jargony, and you know
Yeah.
limit the number of clicks and make sure people have the feedback they want and this kind of thing. So that's why also
Yeah.
in my process for this integration specifically, I just created screens first. As I come from the design world, so I created a screen first.
Yeah.
I wanted the UI to use as many components as possible, so as not to disrupt the patterns you were mentioning. Because if people are used with to unlock, I just don't want to create something completely new where people have to click left and right. No, I want to use the same patterns. I want to make it
Yeah.
easy to understand, and I want to minimize the cognitive effort and the cognitive loads for every user that goes through it. So minimize the click and make sure everything's understandable, so that people don't have to ask, why should I do this? What's this? What's this? So it's and as always, like, we can always refine and improve on this. But my focus was really on that. It's like, make it simple, make it understandable, so that people know the value, and like, that we designers, we like to quote people, and but like, well, one good quote by Dieter Rams is that good design is invisible. And I
Yeah.
think that's really what I want to achieve there is like I don't want people like, oh wow, this is like so nice. No, it's nice, but it's kind of irrelevant. I want people just to use it and just not think about it. And that's really what I was striving for here. Yeah, probably a bit for few more improvements. I'm looking forward to hearing from actual users so that we can just keep building on that. That's part of the iteration process we're familiar with. Um, but the in terms of processes where I started. And I think in Web3, usually you start with the technology, you think there's a problem and you just build a technology to solve that problem without really knowing if it's a real problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the narrative um, we need to change if we want the billion users we've been promised in the past couple of years, which haven't materialized yet for some reasons. Uh, but I think really starting from the people, not users, but starting from people, understand their contexts, their skill level, and that's really important to create a piece of technology that will be adopted. And then that's yeah, and we need more of that, but I don't need to convince you, your designers. So yeah.
No, I know it's surprising because I was just having this the similar conversation yesterday with another fellow designer, and we were just talking about the terminology form follows function. And that's, I think, very relevant to what we're doing today, is because the scope has to come out of some sort of. That's why I asked you what is the problem or the area of opportunity you're looking at. There has to be a problem definition or an area that is actually making an impact with the technology. So let's say today, if you wanted to tokenize the project, it it's great because I'm guessing it would be like a soul bound token which can be minted but can't be sold, because in
Hmm.
in lot of countries and markets, I think this is also one great use case where you cannot replicate certificates and just give
Hmm.
it out, because somehow there are devious activities that go around in certifications, right? So
For
I
sure.
think the fact that it is on the blockchain, and it could work as a soul bound token, and what is the value of let's say the blockchain when it comes into something like this, right?
Hmm.
The scope it makes, it can encourage people to actually say that, oh, I am actually from this college with this minted certificate, and maybe it can have a value, but the fact that, let's say, certificates are actually sold, this is also fighting against that, where there is only one reference of soul truth, and and it's verifiable, the
Hmm.
credentials are cannot be tampered with, right?
Hmm.
My next question to you is that, let's say, for a builder or a developer, how would they just use it as a widget, or is there any process, or would it just be used on a particular platform, or how would it work?
Are you talking about the EAS plus unlock or just the EAS or just unlock?
No, yeah, for what you've created, like, let's say today I wanted to integrate it into my educational platform, or some, like, let's say if I'm running something like Coursera, and I would want to
Hmm.
use it, so how would that work?
I would go through. I think I would go through unlock the web app itself first as
Okay.
a tryout before fully integrating the smart contracts and everything because it's a bit of a lift. So I
Okay.
would definitely try to see how this works. See if you get the benefits that you want just using the Unlock app, the web app. It's everything is in there.
Yeah.
It's easy to use, easy to set up, and it works pretty well. And I build this integration with that in mind as well, so that there's a UI, that's really plugged into the process and the features as they exist right now. Um,
Yeah.
and I haven't put too much emphasis on the developer experience. If they want to integrate that features, I haven't created the objects or the integration path that will allow them to just not do it through the Unlock web app at the moment. It's probably something I should be doing if people show some interest there,
Yeah,
to integrate like
definitely.
yeah, no, if someone like if a big player like Coursera comes and says, hey, we want to integrate that. Yes, of course, like it's totally possible, and let's see how we can make it work without the UI, and let's see, what are the integration points and stuff. But that becomes like a big IT project, like something a bit more significant than um, just finishing the flow. So yeah, that's
Stella is, oh, I didn't see. She's saying if somebody wants to come in and really make sense, there needs to be a prompt. Yeah, I think there is. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were typing there. I suddenly spotted it. Um, yeah, I think that one of the things of doing something like this, because there are so many multiple use cases, and building a seamless experience through touch points, which I've seen that the moment it's like the visual flow of design changes, the user just switches off, doesn't know what's going on. So given the
Mhm.
fact that this is something that is so relevant, maybe this might be a scope in your roadmap, that you think that how can people just utilize that, whether it's education, compliance, supply chain, hopefully
Mhm.
immigration. If anybody's listening to it, this is where you need it. um
There is so much to
like,
do there. It's
oh my god,
it
let's not even
yeah.
start on that.
Yeah, we need a
Even like,
special Twitter space for that. Like that is
yes.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, let's see, even like, let's say voting, that's one, I think, in especially in today's day and age, where the right of the people is so important, um and I think that something like this would definitely be a game. Oh, thanks, Stella, saying she's an active listener. A game changer to actually creating attestations, the actually the policy around attestations at a much more important, like a conditional layer of tech,
Mhm.
where I mean, I mean, that will be again another Twitter space of what it does, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I I think what's interesting in with Unlock first as content subscription management,
Yeah,
it's okay, it's decentralized, so you put that in the hand of the user, so that's really interesting. The certification process is really interesting to me. I think the
yeah,
technology is mature enough to be plugged into real life
yeah,
scenarios. And I think we
yeah,
really need, as you were mentioning, we need to think about that.
yeah,
Yes, immigration, definitely. Having worked in the past life as I was a designer in agencies and
yeah,
work for immigration
yeah, yeah,
administration, they it's very frustrating because you can see the need, you can see the technology exists there, and
yeah,
you need someone to just plug that in, and you need to like it's a
yeah,
lot of stakeholder management, it's a lot of
yeah,
convincing,
yeah,
and I think it's what also frustrating with technologies like Unlock or ES because it's mature, it's working. Um, it just needs to land to find a good landing pad in those use cases, in those moments, in those
yeah,
areas where you think it can make sense. Um, and that's how I had the idea. I had the idea of this integration as well. It's like, oh wait, let's wait a minute. It could make sense in that context. So I think it would be interesting to hear from a little bit more from people like who might be faced with like a complex situation where those technologies can be helpful. And even if it's not a full 100% fit, it doesn't matter. Just like you know. Just shoot the idea like on Discord or whatever. It's like, hey, I'm facing this problem. Like, could you help? And it's like 50% of the work is almost done. Like if you have the
yeah,
problem nailed, the rest is execution. It's complicated. But it's a different kind of work, and you're solving the right problem, and it's going to be valuable. So like the uncertainty of solving for the wrong thing is gone, and you're solving something interesting. So
yeah.
it's more like a call for people to like, hey, after listening to you, that's interesting. Maybe I could apply that in that respect. I'd be interesting. I would be interesting to hear from you guys because that'd be that'd be interesting problems to solve, like real life problems.
Yeah. No, and I think that's one thing which I've seen with Unlock, even as a DAO, the openness that we have as a community, whether we're like so actively doing DAO calls, at different levels every week, and the conversations that happen, are just are inclusive, like the
Mm,
technology, that it's open source.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah.
and I think that's a very important ethos also. And especially in your project or any project which is data centric, you know how do you build your own data? How do you actually create that scope where that credibility is there? And also
Mm-mm,
the use, because like I think I saw one of the points that you said, does it expire?
mm-hmm,
Like, let's say if somebody's doing multiple courses, let's say if you're doing a master's degree in design, you have sub like, let's say, projects, courses, I can't remember what we did, which happen every 3 4 months, right? So those are
yeah.
recurring, so those can be easily be managed through the smart contract. Or let's say group projects, like also the way that people study and work, whether it's
Mm,
giving certification within the scope of let's say an industry, with team building exercises.
mm-mm,
Collaboration is huge. So whether you
yeah.
can add people's addresses and wallets, and the certification can be updated, sent to people, all of that, that feasibility of use is there.
Mm-mm, yeah. Yeah, totally. I think that Unlock is very relevant in the education space,
Yeah.
and for two reasons. One, again, it's the gated content. So if you have content that people want to access because you have something to provide, and it could be whatever classes, course, or anything like that, or just material you're using for your class, or additional material you want your students to access to, but it's paid or it's subsidized or whatever, but at least it's gated. That could be super interesting in terms of using Unlock, and then the certification, of course. And you're
Yeah.
right, we can go very granular. We can go by course, you could go by class, by projects. Like the world's your oyster in that respect, and the technology is flexible enough to allow you to do that, as I showed with the schemas. But also, the NFT, the
Yeah.
certification itself with Unlock is pretty
Yeah.
flexible in that respect,
Yeah.
and it's easy to set up. Like we haven't shown the full certification process, but like to set up the process, it's just what company, university, what organization you represent, description, a few other fields to fill. Like honestly, it takes not even a minute to fill the form, publish it. It's super easy to deploy the contract. Like the again, the UI of the website does, I think, a really great job at just showing enough complexity to understand what's going on under the hood. So you're
Yeah.
deploying a contract, you're doing this and that and this, but like not
Yeah.
too much so that people who are not familiar with the blockchain world, who don't know what a contract is, who don't know what this is,
Yeah.
can still understand, get the reassurance they need to know that what they want to do is being done and is being done properly. So and that's also one of the big advantage of Unlock, is that it's usable by like almost anybody, and that's again, like that's something pretty rare in Web3. Apart from like the big centralized exchange who wants your money and want you to trade all day long so that you can lose as much as possible. But
um yeah.
yeah, I think
um
again it's a big sorry, it's a big advantage from Unlock, like the easiness
yeah.
of use. So yeah, do that, use
uh,
it.
um yeah, use it. I had one question. So while designing this, this is from a design perspective. um, for, let's say, non-users, are you would you ever integrate, let's say, some sort of aid for people to understand, how to use? So let's say a mint, or let's say any other terminology, so let's
Mm,
say when they open up, would it be something that, as some sort of educational drive, you would incorporate that?
Yeah, it's a tough one from a design perspective again. I think it's how much content and how much do you teach? Like, do they know what an NFT is? What it is? Are you gonna, and how much should you
I
give?
think then they need to do that basic research, and
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
But
that's also, yeah.
if you have people who have a problem, who think this technology can help them, you have to imagine that maybe and they heard about NFTs, but like, in a bad way during the DeFi summer, and NFT was going crazy, and that's what they remember from that era, from NFT, sorry, from the concept. And well, yeah, it was that, but it's not only that. So it's a matter of like who your users are, and then what level of skills and understanding they have around the technology, because it is a high step for people to get into blockchain and Web3 in general. Like yeah, there's a lot of terminology. It's stressful because you send money around the world and you don't know, like it should arrive, it hasn't arrived. How many validators have validated my transactions? Not enough,
Yeah.
apparently. And and you're on Etherscan, it's like pulling your hair. So
Yeah.
it's acceptable for, I wouldn't say pioneers, but like early adopters. This level of complexity that we require for people to use those kind of technology is not acceptable for normal people. I would say normal people, like people who are not early adopters. So yeah, yes, we need to. It's a very long, convoluted response to your question. Do we need to put more education? Yes, probably. I wouldn't know how to answer like what kind of content would you provide? Would you provide content for like super beginners who don't know what blockchain is, or would you provide content to people who know a little bit what they're dealing, what the wallet is,
Yeah.
and have a basic understanding of the thing? I think that's the key question, and then you can develop the content around it. But like knowing who your audience is and what kind of skill level they have is the first step. And that's why you see I'm a designer. So it's like always coming back to the same question.
Um,
Sorry, like I just,
I yeah, no, I agree, completely agree with you that I think when you're I think it's a trade-off for, let's say, people who want to get into Web3. One of the key, I would say, ethos for me that attracted me was the ownership. So it has to come from you, that you have to know about the basis. It's also, I think, the responsibility of, let's say, organizations who are looking to expand and scale, not for the people who are already at the, let's say, expert or intermediary leveling up. If you want to look at scale and adopt for early adoptions, then this kind of user experience has to be inculcated to make it more inclusive.
mm,
So I think it's people, everybody needs to make that effort. So I think
it's a good sign of
a good.
commitment. Like
Yeah,
I think,
there
and I
has to
think that
be.
and
Yeah.
the industry kind of lives off that a little bit. You
Yeah.
don't like you you need to go through the motions to learn about the technology and how it works a little bit to be able to do what you want to do. And it selects people, and it's and but you put the cognitive effort into it, you put the effort, and then you're you're committed, so you don't want to leave because you put the effort into it, and it gets more and more interesting, and there's more new technology every day. And so yes, if you want to scale as an organization, probably a bit of training will go a long way. um, I do remember I was part of a big IT consultancy a few years ago, and we got like so much training on blockchain. I mean, it was, they were pushing this technology really, really hard in a B2B context. We got so much
Yeah.
training on that. They were like, ugh, it was just like nauseating. But it's doable. Yeah,
I think
it's doable.
only both of us can use that terminology and smile. um
Yeah,
yeah.
it's doable. But you're right to point that you need to commit a little bit to put a little bit of yourself into those technology. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
It's an investment. It pays off really well, but it's an investment. It's a
yeah.
front investment, and maybe that's why we'll never get these technologies. This industry will never get the billion users, and maybe we don't need a billion users. Maybe we need just people who are committed and who want to own their content, who want to own their certificates, who want to own that, and because um, that's their ethos, that's their morale, and that's okay. That's okay too. We don't need to make it as easy to use as Google or ChatGPT or whatever it is. Like I remember, I was shocked a few years ago. I read someone from Google saying like they basically, or from Facebook, basically designed the interface to be usable by a monkey. It's like wow, that's that's pretty that's pretty hard. Like yeah, we're like basically like they dumbed it down so that even like a non-human, like an animal could use it. I'm just like this is just yeah. Maybe we don't want to
But
go that far into the easiness
but
of use.
the intellect of some species is much higher, so I wouldn't put it past that kind of
Yeah.
caliber either. So yeah, I think it's important for people, because yes, web3 has a large component of finance, and I think it forces you to manage your own money, which a lot of people don't want
Mhm.
to do it. So here you will have to consciously be a part of an ecosystem which questions you about, yes, do you understand how you're going to maneuver, use invest your finances, and it's all on you. So I
Mm.
think that sort of ownership of knowledge banks are definitely important. And yeah, going back to where Unlocks stands, I think it's a great use case to just start getting to know how to use the scope of web3 at use cases which can be easily being being can be easily developed or used at any level.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
it's a great point. Like
exactly.
I think it's a great way to transition from Web 2 or whatever you want to call this to Web 3 because the again like the concepts are properly introduced. Like it's not too complicated, and you see what you're doing. You know, a certification is easy to understand. Getting content is easy to understand. That's the patterns and the models you've seen all around for years and years. So it's not too novel, not as novel as staking or whatever whatever you can think of, which is very Web3 specific. Like it feels very familiar, but with a level of novelty that's properly introduced, and I kind of
Yeah,
introduce you to like, oh, that's what an NFT is for. Oh, that's what a smart contract is for, and it's kind of things, and it's a good way to learn just to go that way.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a very good
yeah.
point.
Yeah, and yeah, and we also had our Metopia learning quest initiative, which I think is coming back again. So yeah, people can definitely keep watch out for that. Yeah, any last thoughts or your message to our viewers?
Um, Listen, it's been a pleasure to work on these projects. Honestly, it's always very meaningful and very motivating to just add more value to a protocol that you believe in, and I think that was what I was looking when I went into Web3, and yeah, we need more of that. So we need more problems to solve, and we need more people to solve those problems. So it needs to come both ways. So, and that would be the message.
Okay. Thank you so much, Thibaut. It was absolutely great. Yeah, and yeah, I hope. Oh, we have our message from our silent viewer. Would you like to come on board? We're going to be having our last thoughts. Yeah, and I think that yeah, I think more people can join us, and yeah, us. I really love this experience of you typing. I don't know
I'm
if
so
anybody.
sorry, but some of these
No.
things they spoke so much to me. I was like, I need to say something. I was actually working, but then I felt I wanted to share at least the thought with you guys. And anyways, this was a really interesting session. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we are yeah, thanks everybody, and bye, and we we are back on the 22nd with some more exploring the Unlock community and how you can grow as a creator. So, yeah, watch out.
Bye.